What is up, guys? Welcome to this video. In this video, we'll be going through Git, and I'll do a little tutorial on how to, manage and play around with Git. But I think the biggest takeaways for this, it's very short, is you need to understand how Git works and you need to practice Git. And I think there are really great explanations on understanding and setting up Git. So please just watch these two videos. Make sure that you watch this one first. It's by GitHub. It'll explain to you conceptually why it's important to use Git. It's essentially used for collaboration. And here we'll be talking. This is a very nice detailed video on the different concepts that we'll cover in Git. The purpose of this video is not to teach you Git. It's just to get you to play around with Git and teach you like how to use it. It's a tutorial on real world Git usage, right? But I mean, just a high level example of Git. The purpose of Git is basically we need some sort of way to collaborate, right? Apart from collaboration, we need some sort of way of tracking the different versions of code we write. You don't want to be in a situation where you're working on a project and you've reached a certain level in the project, and then you're building a new feature, right? And then you're working on the same project, and then something goes wrong. Your code breaks or something, and then you want to revert. You want to go back to the previous version that you built that was working properly, and now you have no access to that. So now, like a quick fix for that would be you can create multiple files. You can create multiple folders like of different versions, right? You can create like an old version, and then you can say I'm building a new feature with a new version, and that'll be in a new folder. And then that could fix the problem. But then let's say you're working like for a year on this, you're gonna have like 1,000 folders, like if you're building new versions every day, and I think it's extremely painful to do that on folders. The solution is to use GitHub. So if you use Git actually as a concept, GitHub is just like the remote. There's multiple platforms that use Git that will store your different versions of code. And with Git, you'll be able to create a local version of your code, and you'll be able to create commits. You'll be able to commit your code, and you'll be able to store a version of your code, and you can start working on a new feature. A cool thing is you can even work in a new branch, and once you've worked in the new branch, once you're in the new branch, you can merge that back to master. So the changes that you've done in your branch, you can put that in master once you know it's working properly on branch and you've tested it properly. So basically the Git is very useful for tracking different versions of code. And I think the biggest powerful thing about GitHub is collaboration. You can do we'll have some webinars on that, on using Git properly. But basically if I want to work with my colleague on a certain project, like I'll be working on a certain component, right? And I'll push my code to master, and then he should be able to pull his code from his side and be able to track the changes I've made. And at the same time, once he has made his changes, he should push it up to GitHub, and I should pull his changes. So that's how GitHub works. It really helps with collaboration. But in this video, I'll just be using GitHub to just show as an individual how you can use it right now. But collaboration will happen in the future. But you got to start using it like as soon as possible. So the first thing you guys need to do is you need to create a GitHub account. Actually, before you even follow along with this tutorial, make sure that you have watched these two videos. This is compulsory. Make sure you've watched these two videos. Once you understand that, you can follow along with this tutorial, right? So you create a GitHub account, you create a new public repository, and then you can call it HackerRank code or whatever, like a challenge of the day. But what I'll do is I'll just create a really simple project. I'll not create the HackerRank challenge of the day. But I think one important thing you need to know is a GitHub profile is like a developer's identity. If you share any application you apply for, you will actually put your GitHub link, and then people will be able to see the kind of repositories that you've built, right? So I recommend that whatever projects you've worked on so far, like all your CODs, all your different Python deliverables, your Java deliverables, put all of them in GitHub, and make sure you've documented it properly. So there's a section that will allow you to document it. So so I'm not going to follow, I mean, the instructions are there here, but we can just jump right into the tutorial. And what I'll do is I'll create a new folder, right? and I'll call it Unix, right? Unix project test. Unix project facet. Okay. And what I'll do is I'll just drop this inside here, inside Visual Studio. And inside this, I'm just going to put my the challenge we've worked on before, and I'll just put that into the project. And I just want to push this file to GitHub, right? So now I'm inside here. This is strange. Let's try that again. In the meantime, let me just open up my GitHub, right? So what I'm basically going to be doing now is I'm going to be pushing my code to GitHub. But basically, let's say that I'm working on the project now, right? I want to track the different versions of code that I'm writing, right? What I'll do is I'll do git init. So with git init, I'll initialize the repository. So now this file is turned green, which means it's being tracked right now, right? And it can be added, and it can be used to push to master, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do git add. So that means I'm going to add it for staging. And then it's also like Visual Studio Code is indicating that it's been added for staging. And then I'm going to commit it, right? Commit, I'm going to say added file, right? And I've made the commit locally. So now you can see that whatever changes I've made are going to be tracked with this code over here, this code. Now, if I do git log, it'll show me all the different commits that I've made in the past, right? So what I'll do is I'll just add a tiny modification here. I'll just take a third input. I'll add a third input. I'll call it Z. I'll call it Z here. And then inside over here, you'll see that if I do git status, now it says that a file has been modified. So Git also tracks what files are being modified. A file has been modified, but it's not been, like it's ready for any commits, right? So what I'll do is I'm going to add this for staging, and then I'm going to commit it, right? So like basically what we did above here, where we added it, and then we committed it. But since we've just modified a file, we can use a shortcut. It's called git commit, and then A to say it's adding, and then M for putting a message, and we can say added Z, right? And now we've tracked all these changes over here, but let's say like my computer gets corrupted and like I cannot do any work anymore. I'll lose the code. Like all my versions are there. Like if I do git log, my versions are there right now, but if my computer gets corrupted, I'll still lose all the versions. I'll lose the code. So that's where GitHub comes in. It's just going to be our remote repository, and it'll allow us to push our code to the remote repository. So what I'll do is I'll create a new repository using GitHub, and I'll call it git Unix, actually git bash. Yeah, I'll just call it git bash. Yeah. And I'll make it a public repository, and you can also initialize a README file, but I'll not add the README file for now. The README file essentially just helps you with, adding some documentation to your repositories, right? But I'm not going to add that for now. I'll just create an empty repository. And then you'll see that it's given, like GitHub has also given me instructions on how I can, either link it with my local repository, or like create a new repository on the command line with this command. So all I want to do is I just want to link it because I already have an existing repository, right? So I just want to link it, and I'll just copy that command and I'll paste it here, git remote add origin, and now it's been linked. So the remote has been added. So when I say git remote add origin, I'm saying that I'm linking my local repository to my GitHub repository, like that's on the cloud, right? So, and now what I'll do is I'll git push origin master, and I'm setting upstream. So when I've set that upstream, it means that master, whenever I do git push, it'll automatically push to master. So you'll see that it's Git is going to give us a few of these confirmations, and looks like it's been successfully pushed to master. So now if I refresh my page here, you'll see that my file is here, right? The xy.sh is here, right? And then it says help people understand, interested in the repository understand your project by adding a README. So let's add a README file, right? And I'll show you something here now. So I'm going to add the README file, and then I'll just say git bash. So it's actually an MD file, a markdown file. So how you type text here might be slightly different. Basic demo of pushing code to GitHub and using it locally, right? And if I preview here, you'll be able to see that this is what it looks like, you know? And now what I'll do is I'll commit the file. I can actually create a commit. So I've committed the file in my remote repository, right? Which is fantastic. But now if I come to my local repository, I don't have that README file. Like if I want to make changes to the README file, I don't have any access to it. So what I need to do is I need to git pull origin master. So I'll be pulling the changes from master, right? Let's give it a second. And you can see now our README file has come. Our README file is accessible. So now we can make additional changes over here. We'll say basic demo of pushing code to GitHub and using it locally. And then we'll just add README from local repo, right? And now what I'll do is I will commit these changes again, commit-am, and then I'll say pushing to master. Actually, whenever you put a message, it should be something relevant. Added git file, right? Or added README, added to the README file. Okay, and then I'll do git push. And let's wait for it for a second. And you can see it's successfully been pushed, right? It's successfully been pushed to master. Awesome. So our code is there, right? Our code is there. But now, like, I think I just want to touch on one more thing, branching, right? So branching is basically to help you with development. So often like the master branch is normally for like the latest working code, right? You don't want to put broken code in your master. So it's always good practice to just create a new branch. And with git checkout-b, you can create a separate branch, and I'll create something called dev. So this will be my dev branch. And now I have switched to my dev branch. So whatever changes I do in my dev branch will be relevant to the dev branch, right? So I'll just come over here and I'll just say, I'll just add another parameter above here. I'll just call it A. Okay, and then now if I do git branch, you'll see that I have two branches. I have dev and master. And now I can work from my dev branch, and I can actually do git add and git commit-m and say A has been added, right? And then I can do git push origin dev. So if you look at it, before I hit enter there, right now we only have one master, like we only have one branch here, right? And now if I do git push origin dev, it's going to push dev, it's going to create a separate branch in my remote repository as well. So if we come back here and refresh the page, you can see now we have two branches, right? And recent changes have been pushed to dev, like GitHub has recognized that. And if I look at dev right now, I can see that in our xy.sh file, we have A that has been added. But now if I go back to master, right? And I'm in my master and I'm looking at XY, there is no A over here. That's because we made the change specifically to the dev branch. So now the moment we feel like, okay, now I think this is ready, like whatever is on the dev branch is ready, that is when you push to master, right? And let's do that via the terminal. So what we can do is we need to check out to master first, because right now we are currently in the dev branch, but we need to go to the master branch and we want the changes that we have put in our dev branch to appear in our master branch, right? So what I'll do is I'll do git checkout master, and then I'll do git merge dev. So whatever changes I had put in my dev are going to be merged into A. And now you can see that A has popped up, right? And you can see that Visual Studio Code is automatically changing depending on the branch that we're using. So if I git checkout dev, you'll notice that it's changed to dev down here at the bottom left. And if I git checkout master, you can see that it, again, like the entire repository changes and it tracks what branch I'm in. So that's really cool. Like it's a super fantastic that you can, do this right now. Because this is a public repository, anyone can clone your repository and they can work with your code, but they cannot push any code to your repository, right? So now let's say that I lose this folder, right? Like I've created this folder and it's all great and everything, but because of some mistake, I lose it, right? What I'll do is now I'll have to, luckily, I lose this folder because my computer got corrupted or something, but I still have it on my GitHub. It is there remotely. It's in my remote repository. So what I need to do now is I need to, if I want to continue working on this project and I've lost the code, we can use the clone command, right? We can use this. So I'm just going to copy that. And then what I'll do is, let me open up a new folder. And I'll call it, let me actually just do that inside the Unix demo. Awesome. So what I'll do is I'm going to git clone and I'll get my git bash folder back, right? So it's just cloning into git bash. And locally, like I've already logged in, I'm already signed, like locally my terminal knows that I'm signed in as Akhil Bodu and it's linked to my remote repository. So I will be able to clone into it and I will also be able to push to it because I'm the owner of that repository. So what I'll do is I'll cd into git bash and I'll just code dot over there. And now if I do git status, I'm on branch master, and basically what I can do is I can push new changes again. I continue working at where I left off. I can even, but I don't, let me actually try to git branch. You'll see that I do not have my dev branches, right? So I'm just trying this command. I have not played around with it too much, but with git fetch just fetches metadata for us. Now, if I want to also get access to the branch that I want, right? I need to just git checkout -b dev. So I need to create a new branch and then I'll do git pull origin dev. So then the changes that I had pushed to dev will also appear in my dev locally, right? And that's basically how you deal with branching, how you deal with committing your code. Anytime you make changes, you can commit that code. And how we pulled from dev right now, we pulled from master. That's how collaboration would work as well. But we'll have a whole nice webinar on explaining how collaboration would work with Git. So that brings us to the end of this video. I hope that was helpful and Git makes sense to you guys. I'll see you guys in the next one.